Chipmunks? Welcome to the AMP Cycling Ride Review Series. I'm your host, Angry Chipmunk, and today we're in the Netherlands taking on one of the Challenge family rides. This is the Almere to Amsterdam route. This route is available on Rouvy, so let's get right to it. Now, I experienced a computer glitch while capturing this ride, so about 20 kilometers of it is missing. The route is mostly the same terrain though, so if you like the look of the first 5 kilometers, the rest will be very similar with mostly just differences in the view. Now this is a fairly long route at 54 kilometers, but very, very flat at only 61 meters of elevation gain. The whole ride averages 0% and will max out at 3%. There are 3 Strava segments included on this ride, with a 4th on Strava. The first Strava segment is Vongerspad. It's at the 980 meter mark, is 1.1 kilometers long with 0 to 1 meters of elevation gain. The segment averages 0% with a max gradient of 1.3%. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a sprint segment or just something noting the area. It is, like the entire ride, really quite easy, so if you want to treat this one as a sprint, be sure to go pretty hard from the start of the route. You'll see the max gradient pretty quickly at the start, and otherwise it's mostly just flat. The second segment is Almere Pampas. It's at the 19 kilometer mark, is just under 4 kilometers long with 5 meters of elevation gain. It also averages 0%. This one maxes out at 2%. For the most part, it is very flat with a slight dip to uphill right near the end. In all likelihood, you won't even notice it if you're traveling along at a good pace. I have no data for the last segment on this ride, since I experienced the glitch beforehand and I entered the ride in the middle of it. It shows up on neither of my Strava ride details. However, from memory and looking at the ride profile, it's also flat. There is a third segment on Strava, which is a long waterway. It's at about the 28 kilometer mark, is 3 kilometers long with 3 meters of elevation gain. It averages a negative 0.1%. Like all of the segments, it's hardly different to the rest of the terrain. Really, knowing where it is helpful only so that you can get a good time on it. Now for this ride, you can get away with no warm-up or cool-down if you use part of the route for both. The whole thing is so flat that it's definitely doable and will save you considerable time. If you want to push this window, do give it maybe 5 to 10 minutes warm up and cool down for your effort. This can be a fun one to push pretty hard and try for some FTP gains. And as always, I recommend pre-fueling your rides, including plenty of protein. This one is an easy terrain but long distance, so you'll need to refuel again anyway. And if you've pre-fueled, split the route into thirds and aim for about 10 to 15 grams in those spots. If you can't pre-fuel, anywhere along the route is perfectly fine to eat. So give it about 20 grams at the start and then 10 to 15 grams around halfway or a bit later. The terrain here isn't super critical to have faster acting carbs, but definitely keep them on hand. And even if you're going a bit lighter, I would still follow this one up with a protein of some sort simply based on the distance and time it'll take to complete. A magnesium supplement is also always helpful. The view on this ride is pretty great in its own way. Almost the whole route is on some kind of cycling path, which in itself is pretty amazing. Frequently, you're out along the coast and it gets some pretty great seaside views. There's plenty of windmills around, and really, what would the Netherlands be without windmills? The sky is perfectly blue and clear, which contrasts really nicely to the surrounding greenery. Given the easy nature of this ride, I tried to make a hard push on it. And accounting for the fact that I needed to complete it in 2 parts, it took me about 1 hour 45 minutes to complete on 100% difficulty emulation. I would say to budget anywhere from 1 hour 15 minutes to 2 hours plus. It's not really suitable for those with time restrictions. Overall, this is a great route for all levels of rider. It can be as challenging as you want it to be simply by riding harder or backing off. If you're a newer rider and the distance is a bit much, you can definitely break it down into shorter rides completed over a few sessions. Rouvy's feature of resuming your ride from where you stopped makes this quite friendly. This can also be a good route to sandwich around difficult rides or climbs if you want something to keep your legs moving but has very little in the way of challenges. This can also be a great ride for pushing your distance goals. It's a pretty versatile route from that point of view. For this route, I would give a 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed the cycle path aspect. It felt like it really created a very immersive feel. For the view, 4.5 out of 5. The weather looks perfect, and the path moving from seaside to more inland through some small towns is all very nice. The numerous windmills you see is especially nice for me, as I don't actually see them all that frequently. For the climbs, NA, there are none. And overall, 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this one despite its lack of hills or mountains. Definitely keep this one in mind for when you need a flat route for whatever reason. Well, that's it for this review, so thanks for watching, Chipmunks. Please let me know what you think of the Challenge Almere Amsterdam route when you complete it. I'll leave you to finish the rest of the ride, and I'll see you next week for another review. Until then, ride on, Chipmunks, ride on.